Okay, good evening, everybody. We're going to be speaking out the midah of anger tonight. And I thought I'd start with a personal story that happened to me just last Shabbos to illustrate how easy it is, even though we're now speaking about the midah of nekius, of cleanliness, chapter 11, how a person has to remember and not forget what he learned right back at the beginning of the Mesilas Yesharim, the midah of zehirus, of watchfulness, of supervising what you're doing. So the story went like this. We went away for Shabbos and we were to a community which was, let's say, a little bit more modern, if you want to call it that. And we were sitting at Shalashudas and I was talking to this fellow and he leant across and he said, "Oh, have you seen the new Bob Dylan film?" So I said, "No, I haven't seen the Bob Dylan film. Not planning to see the Bob Dylan film." And he said, "Well, it's very interesting, the whole kind of principle about this. The film is based on, Bob Dylan came up and he was going to be the new star of the folk world. His heroes, Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, they saw him as the the one who's going to continue the Masorah, the tradition. And he betrayed the tradition. He picked up an electric guitar in 1965 at the Newport Festival. He had a band there and he went electric. And that was the film was all about, how he made this leap to, and they all accused him of betraying his tradition. And I said, hang on a second, what are you talking? Bob Dylan betrayed his tradition by becoming a rock and roller? Bob Dylan betrayed his tradition by becoming a Christian. Hello? And he looked at me and I suddenly realized that I got angry. And I thought, what am I getting angry for? Hang on, whoa, he didn't become a Christian, this guy. Why am I giving him such a hard time? Anger can sneak up on you. And I thought about this afterwards. And I was speaking to my chavrusa and he said, it's the midah of zehirus. A person, in all midas, and especially anger, can be very difficult in this regard. Always has to have, so to speak, like a drone camera floating over him. And whatever he would like to say spontaneously, and even maybe saying something which is very true and actually maybe quite cutting and amusing, but fine, but it has to be placed into the context of thinking about somebody else's feelings. So anyway, I sent him a message after Shabbos. I apologize if I embarrassed you. I don't know why I came down on you. And, he said, it's okay, it's all good. I hope it's all good, meaning he forgave me. But it started me thinking that, a person has constantly got to be aware of, even when hopefully he thinks he's got rid of these midas, they can suddenly sneak up at you from nowhere. And a person has to be constantly watchful, constantly has to have that drone camera going in his life. So however spontaneous he wants to be, and however amusing he may want to be, but he has to have that third eye, so to speak, watching himself all the time. So this is an introduction to the character trait of kas, of anger, which we're going to talk about tonight. V'nira ata min hakas, hine yesh haragzon, she'omru olav, they say about him in Shabbos, kol hakoes ke'ilu oive avodah zarah. There's somebody, oved avodah zarah, serves avodah zarah. There's a kind of angry person who, and we're going to see there are 4 levels of anger, starting with the most severe. The first level is somebody who is as though he's worshipping avodah zarah. In a sense, I would point out actually that the whole idea of anger is in a sense a kind of avodah zarah. Because if a person is constantly aware that he's in the presence of Hashem, Shavisi Hashem lenegdi somid, I've placed Hashem in front of me all of the time. So you wouldn't see some courtier in the palace of the king in the throne room throwing a tantrum, throwing a welly because somebody got up, didn't bring him what he wanted to eat or he stepped on his foot. He could step on his foot very hard, but the king's sitting on the throne, so he'd swallow it. So the mere fact that a person lets go of anger means that he certainly doesn't feel he's in the presence of Hashem. So in a sense, any kind of anger really is betraying a lack of Shavisi Hashem Lenagdi Somid, a lack of Yerushalayim, a lack of feeling that I'm constantly in the presence of Hashem, that Hashem is watching me. But for sure, the greater the anger is, so the greater is that lack of Yerushalayim, and therefore that's why Mesilas Yesharim calls that as though it's Oved Avodah Zarah, as it says in Shabbos. V'hu anik os al kodava. That's somebody who gets angry over anything. Shiasu neged risona, where his will is being flouted. Umismale chema, he comes filled with rage. Shekvar libo bal imo. It's as though his heart is no longer with him. He's kind of, as we say in English, he lost it. V'nivra v'atzoso nivra, and his judgment vanishes completely. V'nei ish kazeh, somebody like this, kazeh kedai laharchiv olam mole im yeh yecholes biyodo. Somebody like this, in that state of losing it, has the potential, God forbid, to destroy the entire world. I'm just thinking now of, when they probably still do have these silos somewhere out in Nebraska with these ICBMs pointed at Russia. They're probably still there. And, the incredibly elaborate precautions they have to prevent this exact kind of situation. Somebody in a position where he can push the button, the big red button, in a state of anger, a person could do that. Because he's lost all control, he's lost all contact with reality. Ki ein haseichel sholet boy. Reason does not rule over him, klal at all. V'husa tam mamash b'chol chayos atrophos. And he becomes no better than a predatory beast. V'olav nema, it says in Eov, toref nafsho ba'apoy halamanacha te'ozev oretz, because of you who tear up your soul in anger. Should the world become desolate because of you? You're going to nuke the world just because you got in a bad mood. V'hu kal vadai la'avor al kol minei averos sheba'olam. For sure, a person in this state can do all kinds of averos, insulting, lashon hara, gezel, and even murder, chalis v'chalila. Im chamoso tivi'eu lohem, if his anger will bring him to them. Ki kava ein lo menia acher ela kaso ve'el asher yevi'eu yelech. Therefore, he's not bound by anything but his anger, and to wherever his anger will lead him, he'll go, because he's completely out of control. As we say, he lost it. V'yesh kaso rochok mizeh. Now there's a different kind of anger, a lesser degree of anger, which is far removed from that. V'ushalo al kol davar asher yavi'eu shalo kiritzono im cotton im godel yiv'a apoy. This is the kind of person that not everything, whether great or small, will ignite his anger. He's slower to anger. Ach behagio lahargiz. But if you get him past that ignition point, Yirgaz vik'as ka'as gadol, he will become just as enraged, and he will give great vent to his wrath. V'husha kar'uhu hachamim, as it says in Avos, kosha lich'ois v'kosha lirtzois. He is somebody he's difficult to anger, but he's also difficult to appease. He's difficult to calm down. This for sure is also very bad. Because for sure, once he gets into that stage, he's no better than the first category. True, not everything will spark him off, but once he gets there, he could be as dangerous as that first category. And afterwards, he may not be able to fix that which he destroyed, he twisted, he made crooked. Okay, so that's two levels. Going down again. V'yesh kason pochos mizeh. There's a kind of angry person who's less than that. Shalo yikas al nikalo. He's somebody who doesn't get angry easily. Va'afilu keshegiya lekas, yeh kaso kas katon v'lo yosur midarkei haseichel, ach odena yishma evrosoi. So this is somebody who is difficult to anger, and even when he does get angry, his anger does not break out beyond the bounds of reason, and he's able to control himself. V'hinei zerachok mina hefsed yoseh mina rishonim shezachanu. And this for sure is, but he still nurtures that wrath. And of course he's much further from loss, the kind of loss that we describe, which could be caused by the first two categories. Af gamzos vadai. Certainly he's not going to become easily get into the situation of destruction. Vaf gamzos vadai shelo higia lios noki ki afilu zohe eno adayin. But we can't call him a noki in terms of his anger, because again, he can still get angry. And even though the anger is short-lived, and even though the anger is easily assuaged and it's difficult to get him going, but nevertheless, that's not called a noki. And remember, we're in the chapter of Nikias. That's the third category. Ki ad shehakas oise boy roshem lo yotza michlal kason. So, because he still hasn't, as long as anger moves him, he still hasn't freed himself from being in the category of a man of anger. There's a fourth category. Yesh od pochos mizeh, less than that. V'hu kasha lichos, it's difficult to anger him. V'chaso lo lashchis, and his anger is not destructive. V'lo lachale, he doesn't destroy elakas ma'at. It's just a small amount of anger. V'kamo zamo, how much does he get anger? Rega v'lo yeseh. He just gets angry for a split second. Sometimes you see like anger flashes across somebody's face and it goes. Dahainu misha shehakas misoire boy beteva al shegam hatavuna tisore kenegdo. So just for a second until he controls himself. He brings it back under control. That's what they say in Avos. Our sages teach, that's called a person who's kosher lichois, difficult to anger, v'noach litzros, and easy to assuage, to appease. Hinei zeh chelek tov. That's certainly a good chelek, v'adai. Ki teva ha'odam misoire lechas, v'im hu misgabe olav, sha'afilu b'shas ha'kas atzmo lo yiv'a harbe u'misgabe olav. So this is certainly a goodly portion, because the nature of a person is to get angry. And if he dominates that anger to the extent that he doesn't allow it to flow strong, he doesn't allow it to overpower him, even in the moment when he does get angry, that split second he overpowers it. So that's something which is, and the anger doesn't stay with him, doesn't linger. Even that little amount of anger does not stay with him. Zman gadol, for a great length of time. Eliyavo v'yelech, it departs, it goes away. Vadai sharui l'shavach hu. He's certainly worthy of praise. For Zal Chulin say, Tole eretz al belimo, that Hashem hangs the world, Tole eretz, he hangs the existence, al belimo. Belimo means nothing. But also it can be darshaned, it can be learned out from this, these two words, blimo, as it says in Ein ha'olam miskayim, the world only exists, ella bishvil, only on account of me, she bolem piv, blimo. He's bolem piv b'shas meriva. At the time of his argument, he swallows, he's bolem, swallows his anger, al blimo. V'hainu shekavanis oire tivoi bekas v'hu his gabrusoi bolem piv. As we said before, it's a situation where a person is already awakened to anger and he stops it immediately. That's the fourth level. There's a fifth level, of course, which we're going to describe as the level of Hillel. Omnam midas shel Hillel Zoken, but the midah of Hillel Zoken, oila al kolele, he's really above all of these levels, even the level of somebody who's difficult to anger, easy to assuage, even as somebody who just, his anger flares for a split second, you can see it behind his eyes and he controls it immediately. There's somebody like Hillel Zoken, who shekava lo haya makpid al shum davar. He was not upset by anything. Va'afilu his orurus shalkas lo nasabo. Anger did not even rise up inside him to any degree, to such extent that he was able to control his anger. He uprooted. I think it was the Vilna Gaon who said that it's easier to learn the whole of Shas than it is to uproot a single midah. What we've been talking up till now, the 4 levels of anger, of people who are progressively able to control themselves, to direct maybe their midot. That's an amazing thing if a person can take the midah, for example, of kas, and direct it in a constructive way. Maybe he gets angry about Chil Hashem in some way, or somebody who can direct whatever bad midas he has to the good. B'chol levavecha. But that's not the same as uprooting a midah. For example, the midah of Pinchas, that he was what's the lashon? He was a kanoi. He was zealous to avenge the honor of Hashem. He took the midah of zealotry and he used it in a positive way. But somebody who's able to actually take a midah and uproot it, so that it's not there, that he doesn't even get to a feeling which needs to be controlled at all, because the feeling's gone. He has no resentment, he has nothing makes him angry in the first place. That's already the level of Hillel. Zehu vadai hanoki minakas mikol ukol. That's somebody who's completely free of anger in every way. V'nei afilu the bar mitzvah, his hirunizal shaloik ois. And even for a devar mitzvah, Chazal already told us to be careful not to become angry. Va'afilu harav im talmido, and even a rav to get angry with his talmid. Va'av im benoi, and a father with his children. And let me tell you, it's very easy to get angry with your children because you're in close contact with them, and it can be very trying when you have kids who don't want to do what you want to do. My wife told me a story many years ago. She wanted to take the kids downstairs, and 5 of our kids, Kanai Nahara, to have a bath. Nobody moved. And she kept saying, come on, let's go downstairs. So finally she got angry. She was going to go out the kitchen door and give them all a nice, a good smack. And as she was going out there, her sleeve caught on the door handle. And she couldn't go, she couldn't move. And it was like Min HaShamayim that Hashem sort of restrained her. There's a story about a Gadol, I think it was one of the Gadolim in the previous generation, I don't remember who exactly it was, but he controlled his midah of kas in the following way. He had an anger coat, an angry coat. And he said, when he felt himself getting angry, he said, I'm allowed to get angry, but first I have to go and put on my coat. And this is a tremendous message. Again, you need your little rachvan, you need your little drone supervising you to realize that you're getting into that state. And that's the big trick with all midas, is to sense it coming out, to keep that watchfulness, that vigilance, that zehirut. But when he felt it coming on him, he went and he said, okay, you can get angry. Fine. Go and put your coat on first. He has this angry coat, and he put the coat on. And of course, by the time he put the coat on, the anger had already died down a bit. And this is true of many, many midos, that if a person can just divert the negative, the Yetzer Hara, for even a split second. This is very true, for example, in histaklus, in looking in places where a person shouldn't look. The worst thing you can say is, don't look, right? Because the Yetzer says, just look. So you say to your Yetzer Hara, I'm fine, I'm going to look, no problem. In a second or two. And in that second or two, the Yetzer Tov has the ability to reassert itself. The Seichel, the intellect, manages to come to the surface again, and you'll be able to control yourself. Because the Yetzer Hara, I think, I don't know if the the Yetzer Hara was working for Nike's advertising team, and they have an ad that went, "Just do it." Just do it is the Yetzer of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara wants you to just do it. Don't think, do it. No. Anything, any time where you hear a voice inside your head saying, just do it, stop. Don't do it. Because that's almost 100% sure to be the Yetzer Hara. My Rabbi told me of a story when they were young, and they were running out the door, and his grandmother shouted out to them in Yiddish, "Where are you going?" So they shouted back, "We're going to do a mitzvah." So she said, "To a mitzvah you don't run. You should run to do a mitzvah. But typically when a person finds himself running anywhere, he should think about where it is he's running. Just do it." Okay, so let's finish off here. So this is Hillel HaZoken, so a person has to be careful. It's a relationship with the student to teacher to student, with his son, with his daughter. And that's not to say that v'lo shelo yasreim, you shouldn't reprove. You shouldn't tell people, point out where they're going wrong, where they're not beseder, where they're out of line. But you have to yasreim ach belikas. It has to be without anger. Ki im lahadrich oisom b'derech hayeshara. Rather, it should be with the purpose is to guide them correctly. And v'akas shira lehem yekas haponim. Now, this is a very interesting thing, and it's very difficult to do. Sometimes you have to show anger. I think with children, it probably doesn't work after the ages of 7 or 8 or 9. But teenagers don't understand anger, and it's very counterproductive. It doesn't work at all. But sometimes young children need to be told off in a firm way. But the anger can only be a kas haponim, an exterior, a show of anger. The anger must never ever come from the heart. The intention, the heart must always be calm and directed, and the intention must be that the anger should be a method of impressing on the child the severity of, my Rebbe said he only ever once hit his children in one situation only. And that's when they ran into the road without looking. Sometimes you need to have anger, but the anger can never be internal. V'akas yekas haponim lo kas halev, and not the anger of the heart, as it says in Shabbos. For Omer Shlomo says in Kehelis, Al tevahel baruchcha lichois. Do not be hasty-spirited to become angry. For Omer says in Eov, Ki le'evil yaharog kas. For the fool is killed by anger. Ram Rizal says in Erevin, B'shlosha devarim ha'adam nika. You can tell who somebody is by 3 indications: B'koisoi, b'kisoi, u'b'kasoi. B'koisoi, in his cups, when he gets drunk, when he has a little bit too much to drink, right? Yinichnas yain v'yotzesoid. The wine goes in, the secret comes out. A person reveals a lot about himself in the way that he acts when he becomes drunk. The kisoi, in his pocket, meaning the way he spends his money, what he spends his money on, what he's prepared to consider to be valuable, whether he spends money on a Ferrari or in supporting a yeshiva, or bakasoi, and in his anger. How does he get angry? Does he get angry like which of our 4 categories? How does he get angry? And of course, halavai, we all be able to get to the level, something to aim for. If we will never achieve it, but something to aim for, to the level of Hillel HaZoken, to have a feeling, to realize that everything, and this really comes, it's a part of emunah and it's a part of bitachon. Why get angry with somebody? If this is happening to me, this person is merely a shliach of Hashem. Why get angry with the person? Whatever's happening, whatever this person is doing, he's doing it because Hashem has sent this particular trial, this particular test to you. He's just an agent. You know, if somebody sends a shliach to tell you something, you don't get angry with the shliach if it's bad news. He's just the relayer of the message. So similarly, when something happens, when somebody angers you, they're really, even if it seems that they're doing it themselves, but this test, this nisoyin, is being sent to you by Hashem, and in a sense, the person who's doing this is no more than a shliach of this nisoyin. Okay, we'll break here.